Hey, it's SickBoy from the Gaminganarchist Collective and welcome to the Anarchic Eye for the 13th of January 2014. Well, first up, now last week China announced that they were going to have a temporary lift on their ban of console video games. So that's a good thing for the industry in general, it's a huge market. Interestingly, they've come out today and clarified that what they will do is they only want to open the window a little crack, not all the way to let all the flies and mosquitoes in. And anything that did not align with the Chinese government's opinions would not see the light of day. Now, if you ever want to know if you're living in a despotic shit pipe, know what happens when nobody is allowed to speak. This isn't really gaming related strictly. I do want to have a little rant on this, just a short one before I carry on to other news. But the thing is, if you live in Western democracy, you live in America, you live in Britain, you live anywhere in Europe, you live a lot of different other places that are developing countries. Now you'll find that you are allowed to talk badly about your country, about your government. You're allowed to protest, you're allowed to complain. Granted, things are getting worse, that people make comments on Facebook, they're getting arrested. These things do happen. But when you realise that you can't, some other countries, you look at China for example, is historically very, very big on control of so many people as well. And when you look at the fact that they couldn't even play a game that would say, for example, just contradict Chinese foreign policy in some regard, even in a slight way, it's going to get hammer banned. That's when you know you're dealing with a despotism. That's some bullshit right there. And it's a little lesson for people who live outside of China, that when you see governments try to impose their political opinion on your taste when it comes to any form of media or entertainment, that's a good sign that they're going down a slippery fucking slope, and you should start making big waves about it. Okay, I want to bring up this story that I wasn't going to bring up last week, but I had a little think about it, and I do have a point that I want to raise. I didn't really want to bring up the fact that Capcom has come out and said it's going to take 8 to 10 times more work to produce a game, because that's just them being twats, and that's also, to be fair, the journalists clutching hold of a statement and trying to cause a huge amount of uproar over basically dumb person said stupid shit. But it does highlight something that I would like to point out with regards to Japanese developers. Now, Japanese development was always pretty much ahead of the game and produces some of the best games out in the market. Capcom have produced over their years some of the greatest games of all time. And this is a sign of how badly they are behind the times. They are not producing, they're working within their current engine, and it's taking them a shit ton of time because they have failed to align themselves with PC development. Because any Western developer who develops for PC will find the new generation consoles much easier to work on than, say, the Cell processor, which is an absolute nightmare for people who aren't aware of it. Unless you're, say, Naughty Dog, you are going to really struggle developing for the PS3. Now, Capcom have clearly focused too much on the console market and not enough on PC. You can tell that because most of their games, if even they are ported to PC, are fucking terrible. Never play the Devil May Cry 3 port. It's fucking awful. It's terrible. Devil May Cry 4 is alright. But, for fuck's sake, you didn't think that, you know, they haven't thought this through. They're not developing towards the right platforms. Everything is unifying, essentially towards PC style of developing, and they are holding back. Because the engine they use right now, that's the same thing they use for the 3DS as they use for the Xbox One. It's bizarre, really, when they use the same engine. Clearly, Capcom, you've put all your eggs in the wrong basket. You haven't seen the way the wind was blowing. You haven't seen that making consoles more like PC was going to benefit you to focus on PC development. But you haven't, have you? And this is why you're in such shit. Well, in some fairly funny news, Maxis have just confirmed that the new SimCity game will be patched to be able to be played offline. Those of you who aren't aware of the history of this game, when this game launched, it was a clusterfuck. It had online DRM, people couldn't log into the system, people were losing their save files. It was an almighty disaster. They had done so terribly bad. Of course, it also was through Origins as well. It caused so many crashes. People couldn't get onto the servers for days. It was a disaster. And they couldn't even fulfill their pre-orders. So clearly, again, server space is a real commodity when it comes to launch. And you should at least know that your launch number, your pre-order numbers, you should at least cover your pre-order numbers. But you didn't even do that. People who pre-ordered the game couldn't even download it. They had to re-buy it and then try and get a refund. Because you could only download it. You could buy it and download it, but you couldn't download your pre-order. It's fucking crazy. But they've now said it's going to be offline, which would make a lot of people happy. Personally, I'm not going on Origin, so I'm not touching it with a barge pole. But I think it's good news to see that they finally buckled to their it's impossible, you can't play the game offline, it's made to be online. Well, people don't want to play that game online. They would like find an online mode, a cooperative mode. That's fine. But forcing it on users in a way that restricts their city size means you can't use amusing names in your city titles. It's just fucking silly. It's always nice to announce this, but a member of our little community here, Bulldozer X, who's very active on Twitter and watches the videos, has broken another video game story. Good fucking work. This one being tweeted to Phil Spencer and asked, will the Xbox One be the last console Microsoft make? He has come back and said, no, he doubts it. He doesn't think so because, and he's gone on, he's mentioned about how local processing is going to be a thing for quite some time. No shit! No fucking shit. This is all part of the weird mixed messaging that's coming out of the gaming industry, and particularly from people in Microsoft PR, that they are desperate to move things into fully cloud services. And in the same way that Sony are with the PlayStation Now, it's using streaming, of course, for streaming read. We're also not going to stick in backwards compatibility. Good luck playing your games, you have to rebuy them, but that's by the by. It's good to see the industry start to accept that their gabbling towards fully online future is not there for most people. Now, I've got very good internet. PlayStation Now came out, they said you needed 5 megabytes per second internet to use it, and I was like, oh great, that's brilliant, oh that gives me I've still got loads of bandwidth on top of that. No problem. Absolutely no problem. I could do that while watching Netflix and uploading a video. No big deal. So, for me, that's fine because I've got the infrastructure. Now, that's not even ubiquitous in my country. It's certainly not ubiquitous in the world. Certainly not in places like America, where I didn't even realise, I've discovered a little while ago, there's places with dial-up over there. Jesus, I didn't even know 56k modems existed anymore. I thought they were all gone. But there we go. I'm completely baffled about that. But, you know, it's a reality. It's good to see them being honest about the fact that they know this remote processing is not there. We do not have the ubiquitous high-speed internet required, and also, on a personal perspective as a consumer, and I've said this time and time again, remote processing means you no longer own your games. It means you only have your games for as long as they host them. And that's a problem. That's a problem for you. That means you're not paying $60 for a game, you're paying $60 to rent a game. You see that the PlayStation 3 titles, they're already coming offline. As I mentioned last week, MAG's going, all 3 Resistance games are going, GT5 is going. So if those games were purely all online, and one of them obviously MAG is, as with one of the SOCOM games, that's going offline, those 2 games are dead now. They're gone. Absolutely fucking gone. This is the reality we're looking at. This is why the industry needs to be much more clever with their pricing and marketing. Because we shouldn't be paying that price if it is essentially a subscription fee. And if you're willing to do that, then you are literally willing to pay hundreds of times more than something's in fact worth. Because it's worth nothing. It's just worth your time. It's not a thing that you can have. Now, I don't tend to resell the things that I have. But if I buy something, it at least has a commodity. Say, God forbid, my career went under, I couldn't keep my house, everything went, they could come along and they could take my books and my video games and my TVs and my laptops and stuff like that in order to help recoup the debt. The things I have a value. If I don't own anything, I'm just paying for digital shit. Where does that go? I can't pay the subscription anymore, lose access, it's gone. It's a rental service. That's how you need to be looking at it. Cloud processing is renting. If you don't want to rent, you do one of two things. You either insist on a lower price, or you go elsewhere and ensure that there is a single player experience. Now, a fully offline single player experience, I might add. Now a lot of people have come out, in fact Phil Spencer is one of them, saying that single player games are dying out. Well, that's bullshit. That is absolute bullshit. The single player experience, particularly with streaming and let's plays and stuff, there's no such thing really as a single player game anymore. You can stream the game and it's used for entertainment purposes. It's a big deal. And if you're just somebody who wants to be antisocial when you play your games, I'm one of those people. 99 times out of 100, if I'm playing a game, I'm playing it isolated. Because that's how I like it. I want me versus the game. I expect the game to give me sufficient challenge. If the game doesn't, and certainly with fighting games, you have to go online for a decent challenge. But on the whole, I mean, other than obviously the invasion tactics and things like Dark Souls are great, but Dark Souls doesn't need online to be great. What made that game great is the game itself, not the online component. The online component is a nice thing. Now, Demon Souls is no longer online. Still a great game. You can still pick it up, you can still play it. If FromSoft developed these games purely through cloud processing, nobody would be able to play Demon Souls, and that would be a goddamn shame. And the same thing goes for any game that you like. Do you only want it to exist for 5 years at most? Maybe 10 years if on the outside if you're lucky. Or do you want them gone? Or do you want to have to pay for a subscription fee to re-buy things you already have and rent them forevermore? Consumers need to think like these things. Need to think what's important to you, what's important to your wallet, what's in your best interest. You don't need to be the fan of a fucking company. You have to suck their dick. You're paying them. That's enough. You don't have to give them up your rights as well. Anyway, guys, thanks a lot for watching. If you look through the 2020 vision of the Anarchic Eye, I'll catch you guys later.